Hello, hi, welcome to Yedidia and welcome to the Parsha of the week, PARSHAT SHELACH. So this week's Parsha, which is known as the Parsha of the Spies, has a lot of beautiful attributes in our history, unfortunately. And why is that? Because this week's Parsha, the Meraglim, the spies, they went throughout the entire land of Israel. They came back, and the reports that they gave were all negative. But even worse than just negative reports, it was the way that it was said. So who were these Meraglim? Who were these spies? They were the heads. They weren't simple people. They were the heads of the community, heads of certain tribes. So the question is, how could such people? We say that Kulam Anashim Rashi Bnei Israel. All of them were the men. They were the leaders of Bnei Israel, of the children of Israel. How could they go at such a fault to bring back such bad reports and also to say it in such a terrible way, which if we see is the wrong way of actually portraying something? How could it be? So there's a beautiful story. I'm going to tell you the short version of it. We all know the Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu the prophet, and in all of his stories he does a lot of miraculous, however very odd things. And there was a rabbi, his name was Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. And the Yeshua ben Levi, he always wanted to ask Eliyahu Hanavi, please, I want to know what is happening. What do you do? Where do you go? What is it every single day that you do something? So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi would pray and pray and pray until finally he got the permission and he was granted to actually speak with Eliyahu Hanavi. And when he finally sees this prophet, he says, listen, Eliyahu, I want to know what is it that you do. He tells him, you want to know what is it that I do? Impossible. What I do is so beyond your mind and far beyond your imagination that you'll never understand. He says, I know, I really want to know what's going on. So he says, okay, if you come with me, I will show you everything. But do not ask why. If you ask why, that's it. You have to go home and you won't be able to tag along anymore. He says, listen, I have to. I've been waiting so long to find out what's everything all about. Okay. So Eliyahu Hanavi, he goes from place to place doing extraordinary things. I'm just going to give you the short version. He goes to a town. Now this town, it was like I don't even know how to say it, the most grandiose town, the most beautiful town. The wealthiest people were there. Everything was gated. Everyone had at least a $15 million house there. However, all you see is gardeners. You see gates opening, gates closing. You don't see anyone there. And finally, the Eliyahu Hanavi is walking through that area. Anyone who sees him, they're so self-involved, they don't even say anything to him. They don't say hi, nothing. They have to end up sleeping on the corners of the street. The next day, right before Eliyahu Hanavi is about to leave, he says, listen, may God grant all of you to be to be noblemen and statesmen of your city. So the rabbi's thinking, he's like, what type of blessing is that? Okay. He goes to the next place. They go into a town, and this town is a small town. Barely has even bread and water to give. However, they welcome him. They clean him. They give him so much to eat, so much to drink. I mean, obviously what they could afford. And they give him a place to sleep. The next day, Eliyahu Hanavi, you know what he says? May God grant to you one noble statesman, one noble leader, and he'll take care of you. So Rabbi Yeshua, he didn't know what to say anymore. He's like, that's it. Listen, Eliyahu Hanavi, I can't take anymore. Tell me, what are you doing? He says, if I tell you, you have to leave me. So he says, fine. You know what I did? The first city we went to with all the wealthy merchants, all the wealthy people, all the people which had everything, you know what I told them? It wasn't a blessing. It was a curse. You know how the saying goes, too many captains sink a ship? If all of them are leaders, all of them are statesmen, what happens to their city? It will always be in strife. No one will ever listen to each other. However, Shlomo says when you have a wise leader in a city, all of its inhabitants will be at peace. And when I went to that city, which gave their heart to us, and they will have one chacham, one wise leader, that city will be a worthy city, will be a city that will live in peace. So wow, what does this tell us? It tells us that when you look at the Meraglim, our commentators say that one of the biggest faults was that each one not only was the head, but they also held themselves as being the head of the community. They held themselves as being the important one. They would never give in to each other. Their opinion was so strong that they were too clouded to even think otherwise. That was one of the biggest problems of the Meraglim. So true, the way that they talked about it was a problem. But the other problem was when you have such people, such statesmen, noblemen, they go out, they don't even listen to each other. What type of spies is that? You always have to be in sync. You have to realize that you have to not always see yourself that, listen, I'm the leader. No one can tell me what to do. You're not my father. You're not my mom. Or, nowadays I don't know how much people actually listen to their parents anymore. But you have to actually do what the Pirkei Avot says, which is Aseh lecha Rav. Make for yourself a rabbi. What does that mean? Find yourself a rabbi. Even if he's younger than you. Even if he's less experienced than you. But you have someone to talk to. Someone to actually go to him. Socialize with him. Take advice. Don't always believe that you're right. If you always think that you're right and you have all the answers, you'll never learn. So Bezrat Hashem, I want to wish you a beautiful week. And let us not make the same mistake. Let us realize that, look, half of it, of our life, is humility. Because by humility, that is the key in which that we gain the entrance to learn. And may we learn each and every day more and more. And I want to wish you all a gorgeous Shabbat, a gorgeous week around the table with all your families. Shabbat Shalom.